trying to figure out if this is even a good setup with the lighting and everything, but hopefully it is, and hopefully this will be a good little podcast. Hi everybody, my name's Andrea. Welcome to my channel. If you've never been here, this is only my third video on the entire channel, but it is going to be basically a recap of everything that I have knit while learning to knit. A lot of people have a history of knitting and they've been knitting a long time, or they came back to it, but I actually never knitted before in my life, and so when I started learning to knit, I had zero experience. I had no one to teach me, so I relied heavily on YouTube and things like that, blog posts. And so what I wanted to do was, in a kind of first episode of maybe something I'd like to do monthly, is basically show I am a monogamous knitter so far. I have figured that out. I like to have one project and finish it before I start a next one. That doesn't mean that I don't plan for the next one that I would like to do, but I tend not to cast on another project before I finish one. So my podcast would probably be a lot different than a lot of podcasts, because some people have multiple finished objects, multiple works in progress, and then they do like acquisitions or future plans. My format would probably be something like a finished object, if I had it, the work in progress that I have, and then planning for the next one. Basically, is the process that goes into me picking out the next pattern for the yarn that I would have at that time. And so I think that's probably what it's probably going to be as format wise going forward. This one, I started learning to knit the very end of March of 2026. So like March 28th or something like that is the day that I learned how to cast on, how to knit stitch, how to purl, how to cast off. Those things were the very first things I learned, and then everything after that, I tried to learn an additional skill in that. So basically, for the first podcast, I want to kind of go over the thing that I started with at the very beginning and how I worked my way up to making the very first garment, which I made, which will be frogged eventually, but I wanted to give it one last hurrah before I frogged it, which is because it is a little bit too big, is a Tulsa Tank square neck by Rebecca Clow. But so first I did want to go ahead and talk about what I did when I first started, and then move into the projects that I made until now, which is what my newest work in progress will be, which is another Tulsa Tank, to kind of hopefully fix the problems that I had with this one. So to get started, the very first thing I did was figure out whether I wanted to learn, or how I wanted to learn to knit English style, continental style, or whatever. I don't really like things wrapped around my hands, so knitting seems odd because you need, to keep tension on your yarn and things like that. So first I tried a bunch of different videos trying to learn continental style knitting, and I tried for a few hours over the course of a little bit of time, and I could not get my hands to do that. So then I didn't realize at the time that there was also English style knitting. So then I started watching a few videos on English style knitting and ended up liking it a lot more. I got the hang of it a lot quicker, and so that's the one I decided to go with. I could change in the future if for some reason I feel like I need to change, but I did end up learning English style knitting. So at the current moment, that is my preference, and it works the best for me. So the first thing I did was just make like a little swatch of garter stitch and stockinette stitch and ribbing. And so basically that is the very first thing that I did. I didn't try to make a pattern or anything yet, obviously. I just wanted to practice. And once I felt like I got the hang of kind of the different types of knit and purl stitches and what they can do in this kind of instance, I went for the next thing, which most things suggest to make scarves or, you know, things like that. I don't wear scarves. I'm a very hot-natured person, and currently, like I was up until February, we were in Arizona, so it was very warm there. No scarf necessary. We were in the Sedona area, and then right now we're in North Carolina, and it is very hot and very humid, and I do not need a scarf. So one of the things that I wanted to do that we could use was a coaster. And so the very first project I made at all was a little coaster. And you can see all of the things where I like missed stitches, and then there were some holes and things like that. This is a coaster pattern. I think it's the Sandstone coaster by Anastey Lovely on Ravelry. And so you can see definitely where I was following the pattern, and then it ended up getting a little off and stuff like that. So this was the very first thing I made knitting. And then I was like, okay, I need to try again, because this is just some basic cotton yarn that I picked up for a few dollars. And then I was using wooden, just straight wooden needles, I think, whenever I started. So then I made a second one, and I did not miss any or skip any of the stitches in the pattern this time, which I think it was just like kind of knit and purl back and forth on opposite rows or something like that. It's a very beginner friendly kind of pattern as a coaster. And so then after that one, I moved on to another little coaster, and I was like, oh, let me try to follow some kind of charted little coaster pattern or something like that. And so this one is, I believe, Easy Christmas Tree Coaster by Nimble Needles. He's obviously a big YouTuber, I'm sure you've seen him. But so that was the next little coaster I made. And so once I got these few things under my belt, I decided that I wanted to try and make another project. And I do wear headbands quite frequently, but I didn't have I found some yarn in the house. This is a long story, but my aunt had ALS, and when she before she passed away, she had asked us to move back home, because like I said, we were in Arizona. We moved back here. She asked us to if we would come back and take care of all of her animals if she passed away. So we agreed to do that, and so we moved back here, and so now we are taking care of all of her amazing cats, dogs, and bird. And so we're here doing that. But she had some yarn in her basement. She was a big crafter, so she had some yarn, and I found this yarn in her basement, and I wanted to make a headband. I thought maybe that would be something fun to try a new stitch pattern. And so I tried this. This is a headband. I'll put the name in. I can't remember the name of it. Yarrow headband maybe, by Mirella Moments. And so that was the first thing. It ended up obviously being too big because I didn't know anything about gauge at that point. Nothing about gauge, and the needle size I knew, and I knew which one I had, and the yarn I didn't know too much, because this is an acrylic yarn and it was really stretchy, so I didn't know too much about that. So it's way too big for my head, but it does look pretty, and so I was really proud of myself after I made this one. So it's a really cool pattern, and Mirella Moments has a ton of really nice headbands, so hopefully in the future I will make another headband, because I do like to wear those if we go hiking or outside with the dogs or taking the dogs or whatever. I really like headbands, so I think that's something that I will probably try again to make in the future. And so that was this one. So far we went just learning stitches, and then making the coasters. I learned how to follow some different things, and then this one was another pattern, and then it taught me basically how to, you know, sew some things together with a tapestry needle in that way to get the little twist at the front of this particular headband. After the headband, for some reason, I kind of think I decided I was going to go big or go home. I really wanted to practice to try and get muscle memory for knit stitch, and so garter stitch, obviously. And so my husband asked me if I would make, we were watching something, I believe Knits maybe, we were watching one of her podcasts, and she made the Moonstone plaid blanket by Two of Wands, Alexandra Tavel. And he was like, oh, it's knit stitch. So we were like, okay, I can make that. It'll give me good practice. And I was fully expecting it to take me a really long time, because, you know, you hear like knitting a blanket or something and you just started knitting, you're like, oh God, that's going to take a really, really long time. And because it had, you know, it was changing colors, because that was the new skill basically that I was going to learn, is using 2 different colors of yarn in some kind of stripe pattern. And then after that, you have to weave in more yarn to give it like a plaid effect. And then you have to create kind of rope tassels on the edges of that yarn after you do it. But so I did make, much more quickly than I thought I would, a Moonstone plaid blanket. And I was like beside myself with how proud I was. It wasn't without the knitting portion of it went by really fast, and I really enjoyed that part. But I think when I did this, I didn't know enough about my knitting, or knitting in general, to know which, you know, the loops and the different stitches and which pieces make up each stitch. So when I first started doing the weaving, it looked awful. If you want to look at and see what some of the weaving looked like, go to my Ravelry. It's linked in the description of the video. So go to my Ravelry and look at how, I might put a photo in actually if I have it on my phone still. I'll probably put the photo in of it so you can see how bad the weaving looked, because I couldn't really figure out where the weaving should go. And then so after I was supposed to be halfway through the weaving, it was supposed to be halfway through, I'd only made it like a quarter of the way across the blanket, and I was like, this is definitely wrong. I'm doing something completely wrong. So I watched the video over her instructional video about the weaving multiple times, and then finally realized where exactly the weaving is supposed to go. And so I got it and I finished it, and I compartmentalized it a little bit. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this many weavings per day and then just set it aside, because I didn't need a blanket right away, because it's, you know, right now it's almost getting towards the end of June. So I think it's the 19th today. So I did that, and then the twisting of the braids, I did that all really quickly. So it didn't take me too long. I'll put in the video, I don't remember exactly how long it took me to finish this whole thing completed. But I did, and I got tons of practice with knit stitching. And so after I made this, I gained a lot of confidence, because I didn't really think that I could do these things. And then just learning, you know, on YouTube, I thought maybe I would need somebody to teach me in person, but I didn't end up needing that. And so I'm really happy that this turned out the way it did. And then so that gave me some more confidence, obviously, to start another project, which was, I made sure I knew garter stitch and how to change colors in that project. And then I followed another online tutorial for my next project as something that we could use, because I like to be kind of practical, like a practical person. I don't like to get a lot of things that I don't necessarily need. But so I made, we don't like to use plastic shopping bags, so we use our own bags to the grocery store. And so my husband made a quilted bag one time. He likes to sew and quilt, and so he did that. And then so I was like, okay, I can make a market bag. And so I found the market bag by Davina Choy of Sheep and Stitch on YouTube. And so I made a market bag. And so I learned how to do like lace repeats kind of for the first time, which was really fun. It took me quite a while because I would do a few lace repeats and then stop, because like it was kind of tedious to me at the beginning because I would try to remember, you know, the yarn overs and all of those types of things to figure out. But so I really did that, and then I learned to pick up stitches to make the handle. But this was a project that I was very, very proud of. I'm still really proud of it. I look at this thing and I can't believe that I actually made it. And because I think a long time ago I had something like this, and so I'm just really, really proud of this, and I can't believe I made it. I'd love to make another one of these sometime in the future. I think it's a really cool project. So if you haven't made anything like this and you'd like to, that's a great video to follow, tutorial from Shoop and Stitch if you want to do that. This yarn is the I Love This Cotton from Hobby Lobby, I believe. I think it's in the pattern Woods, but I thought the colors ended up really pretty in this also, but so you can see the like lace and things like that. And so after this one, I ended up finding, I saw on Instagram that Sewrella was having an Oopsie sale, and I had never seen, or I didn't know anything about hand-dyed yarn at the time, and I saw she had like a Disneyland collection and things that I thought were really pretty. And so there was no current collection being on pre-sale or anything like that. So I just ordered an Oopsie bundle. I think I got Nylon DK. Like I said, this was early on. I didn't know, like I thought, okay, you can make socks out of Nylon DK. Maybe I'll make DK socks. And I'm like, do I need socks that thick? So that's a whole other thing. I probably wouldn't do it again. But I did order Nylon DK, and one of the colors that came was Hitchhiking Ghosts from the Disneyland collection in my Oopsie bundle. And Haunted Mansion is my husband Jeremy's favorite ride at Disney World and Disneyland also. But so he absolutely loves that ride. And when this color came in our Oopsie bundle, he was really excited about it. So he loves beanies when we were hiking in the cold and stuff like that, but he loves to wear beanies. So I found a beanie on Ravelry. I think it's by Claire Borchardt. Claire in Idaho, I think is her Instagram name, but it's called The Raven. And so if you've seen the name of their channel, The Prairie Dog and the Raven. So he's the Raven, I'm the Prairie Dog, obviously. I even have I always have Prairie Dog and Raven earrings, because that's basically us. Those are our like favorite animal spirit. I don't know what you would call it, but anyway, so he loves ravens. I love prairie dogs. It's a thing. And so I made the Raven beanie for him. And I learned in this one the German twisted cast on. And so that was the new skill I learned from this beanie, is German twisted cast on, and then how to, close a beanie at the top, and ribbing and things like that. And so I made this for him. The problem with it, I think it looks really good. I'm really proud of it, and I might put a photo in of him wearing it. And so I'm really proud of this one. Because it's superwash merino and nylon, it did grow a lot, and I'm still in that kind of pre-gauge area of knitting that I still hadn't quite grasped that concept yet of how much yarn grows if it's, different types of yarn. And so this one I will probably end up frogging sometime and then re-knitting in a smaller size maybe for him, because I knit it 2 size, and then it ended up stretching quite a lot. So I will probably re-knit this one, but I was really proud of this one as well. It's a really cool pattern. It's a free pattern as of right now. It could change in the future, but this is a free pattern by Claire Borchardt, and it is called The Raven Beanie. And so there was that. The next thing I did after the Raven beanie was something that I wanted to use. I like to use the rest of the yarn. I don't really like having a lot of stuff left over when I do things, so I try to find small projects to use, you know, a few grams or 20 grams, whatever, of the yarn. And so I realized that I love to knit scrunchies. And so this is the first scrunchie that I knit. I think it's just called Stockinette Scrunchie. I think this one is by Bryn on Ravelry. And so I learned, I already learned knitting in the round, and so I knit the scrunchie in the round, and I learned the mattress stitch to seam it up. And then after I made this top, I made another one, and so I really quite enjoy these. I wear scrunchies often, so that's something that I think you can tell I've worn this one a lot because it's already really starting to stretch out with the rubber band on the inside of it. But I absolutely loved knitting those scrunchies and, you know, seaming them up and figuring that out. And so basically those are all of the projects that I did to get to where I felt comfortable. I probably could have done it sooner, but I wanted to make sure that I felt really comfortable before I started any kind of garment project. And so that brings us up to the current where I made my first Knit Notes episodes. So I guess we can talk about that. So if you haven't seen my Knit Notes episodes, that's basically where I take whatever project I did, which the first episode is about this Tulsa tank. I list, you know, the yarns I used for it, any problems I encountered while I was making it, all of that sort of thing. And so if you're interested in that kind of thing, you can watch those. I just take all of the notes basically that I wrote while I was knitting and made an episode about it for myself for the future, to see kind of my progress and how I, you know, get better as I go along when I knit and that kind of thing. And so this one, it is going to be short-lived, but I was very proud of myself that I actually made it. I realized that it was going to be too big fairly early on, right kind of before I made the split for the front and back. But I wanted to finish it because I wanted to make sure that I could make it, the whole thing, before, you know, I made another one, because I do still really like this pattern. I would highly recommend the Tulsa tank pattern to anyone. It's a really nice, basic, I would call it beginner friendly pattern. It doesn't have too many, you know, difficult stitches or nothing like that in it. So it's something that I would definitely recommend. It just ended up being obviously way too big for me in the first one, because like I said, this is nylon DK from Sewrella, so I just used the suggested needles and then hoped my gauge was okay. Big mistake. I know now to make gauge swatches, all that kind of thing. So I did that, and so that was the first garment I made. So that's Knit Notes episode 1. Episode 2 is my Wisteria tank by Joan Ho. So this is episode 2 of Knit Notes, and so if you want to find out more about this tank top and all of the different things that when I was knitting it, all of that kind of stuff, you can check out episode 2. So that is basically everything I have knit so far. So now we will go into my work in progress that I am really excited about right now, that I am working on currently. So I have this t-shirt from Wild Tribute that I really love, and I have loved it to death, kind of. It's got an owl on the front and it says, "Give a hoot, don't pollute." And so I love this t-shirt, and so I wanted something kind of to replace this t-shirt, or in a color to replace this t-shirt. So, and I knew I wanted to make a second Tulsa tank. So in that frame of mind, I decided to make, instead of the DK version of the Tulsa tank, I decided to make the 4-ply or fingering weight version of the Tulsa tank the second time, and it was the first time it is the first time I have ever used fingering weight yarn. So I had no concept of how long it would take, anything like that. So I ended up getting Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in the color Pea Shoots. 34474, I believe, is the number for that. And it's similar, it's not exactly the same color as the shirt that I'm trying to get, so it's a very similar color. Maybe I can find another color that will be closer to it in the future. But so I decided to use Knitting for Olive Pure Silk to do my second version of the Tulsa tank. And so let me grab it so you can see how far I am into it. So I'm into my second ball of Knitting for Olive, and I think I am like, what do you call it, maybe 8 inches or so into, I think I need to knit up to like 13 before I split for the front and back. So I'm actually making really good progress, and I am really happy. I love this yarn. Knitting for Olive Pure Silk is like, the fabric is just so drapey and so nice, and it's not thick, and I'm really, really excited as far as like a summer kind of tank top goes. But yeah, so I mean, I've got a decent amount of progress on this, and so that will be my Knit Notes episode 3. I'm using Chalgoo red lace, just fixed needles. I haven't bought a set or anything of needles yet, which I'm thinking about doing in the future. I really would like to do that so I don't have to keep, buying fixed needles in certain sizes and things like that. But I'm really, really, really happy with how that is coming along. Like I said, I still need to frog this one, but I have been enjoying the second version of my Tulsa tank square neck a lot. And I think, like I said, I'm about 8 of the 13 inches I need to get to that. So like 5 more inches split between front and back. So hopefully I'll get to that in the next 5 days or so. I've tried to knit maybe about 1 inch of length on it a day with all of the chaos that goes on with taking care of the animals in the house and everything like that. So I am really looking forward to that. So the last thing I probably want to talk about, I guess, in this kind of podcast style format is, so I will probably in the future do, like I said, the finished kind of thing that I just made, or like an update per month of what happened, what I made in that month maybe. And then the middle part will be my work in progress that I've got going on. And then probably the last section will not be like acquisitions, but it will be more of the project that I have planned next, or I have ready to do next, or maybe looking for patterns for the next thing, because I don't know a lot, too many, pattern designers. Obviously I know the large ones that everybody knows, that are very, very popular, and I think I'd like to try a lot of different people's patterns, like I said, Mirella Moments, Sheep and Stitch, I tried, Two of Wands, I tried, Claire Borchardt. So I'm trying to try a lot of different designers' patterns before, or just try a lot of different things in general. But I kind of forgot where I was going with that. But I do want to try things like that. So it will probably be, I'll have a specific yarn, and then maybe pop up a few photos of patterns that I would want to make, and then maybe you guys can make suggestions of patterns that are kind of similar to the ones that I show, that are maybe a designer that I haven't found, or one that you've tried or you've made, or something like that. But so this time I don't have a yarn where I need to know a pattern, so probably in the next update I would have some yarn to guess or try to figure out what pattern I would like to make. The next project I'm going to make after this is because of when I made the blanket, the Moonstone plaid blanket, I had so much yarn left, and it called for, I think, 6 balls of your main color and 3 of each of the accent colors. And one of the accent colors, I basically had 2 whole balls left. So what I'm going to do is make a pillow, I think on the bias throw pillow, or I don't know. I'll put it up. I'll put it up, a picture of it up here, but of the same yarn. It's also by 2 of 1, so I will make that. And I kind of want to make it to use the rest of the yarn that I got whenever for the project of the Lion brand Hue and Me yarn. So I think I'm going to make it in the colors Shadow, Haze, and Arrowwood. I think those are the 3. The Werewolf color, the other color was Werewolf that I used in the blanket. And my husband is actually making a cowl pattern with that Werewolf color. So he's learning to knit as well. And he's making a cowl in the Werewolf color. So I won't have that one. So I will try to make that on the bias throw pillow with the remainder of the yarn to use up the rest of it for that. So I'll put that, like I said, up so you can see it. And any of these patterns that I talked about, I will put in the description of this video if anything is interesting to you. But I want to say thank you for watching. If you've watched this far, it's a really long video and it's kind of rambly because I kind of all over the place. I didn't know exactly how to make a podcast or what to talk about, just because I seem to do projects differently than a lot of the other YouTube knitting podcasters kind of in the community. And so I only have one project going on at a time, so it's not like a lot of different things like that. But I also love to see what everybody else is working on. I'm trying to follow some people on YouTube and Instagram and different things just to get more exposure to a lot of patterns, because like I said, there's a lot of certain designers kind of in your face, and I like to try a lot of different things and different techniques, and I would love to learn a lot of, stuff like that. And so if you have any suggestions about certain designers I can start following, maybe on Instagram or on Ravelry, different patterns, or let me know what you are working on in the comments, because that gives me something to look to and see, to find new people to follow and different stuff like that, since I'm very new to the knitting community and everything like that. So if you have any of those suggestions, put them in the comments for me, or for anybody else watching this video, that would be very helpful, and I really, really appreciate that. If you have any questions about any of the patterns that I showed or talked about today, or any suggestions in general, you can put those down in the comments. I would really appreciate it. And like I said, thank you very much for watching. And if you want to check out those Knit Notes episodes about those 2 specific tops, hopefully Knit Notes episode 3, like I said, will be about the second version of my Tulsa tank in the Knitting for Olive pure silk. So that will be coming in the future. And then I probably will make I would like to make these podcast episodes monthly, just so I can keep track kind of what things that I have made and all that sort of thing. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it again. I was really shocked about how many people watched my first Knit Notes episode, and so I couldn't be, happier with that. That people were interested in, seeing the notes that I took on my knitting when I really just started. So have a great day. It's the end of June, it's almost July, and so it's getting really hot, so I can't wait to make some more summer projects, and I hope those will be in my future before not too long. So have a great day again. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment, tell me what you are working on, and what you're excited to make, and how long you've been knitting, even like if you've been knitting a really long time. So have a great day. I'll stop rambling. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Bye.